It's about what do you really want? A lot of times there's a gap between what we think we need and what we truly desire. And when we think about an expectation for next year or an expectation for a dream that we have, that's what we're going to really be thinking about today. There was a man who was disabled. We'll call him Bob. He hung out at a free clinic, waiting to get a turn to get the medicine he thought that could help him. And this is a little country he lived in. It's not as organized as it is here. People would cut in line and push ahead to get to the support that Bob so desperately needed. He actually never got to go inside and wound up despairing. So he didn't even bother trying anymore. Day after day, though, Bob sat outside, depending on food and support that strangers would drop off, while he looked longingly at the clinic, wishing somebody would have helped him to get to the front of the line to be seen. Sometimes he even got angry at his family that they didn't come by to help him, even though he knew they were struggling with their own hard circumstances. Eventually, the clinic itself ran out of funds and medicine, but people kept trying to get in, and Bob never even got close. After many years had passed, a traveling health worker saw the pitiful state of this man, and he brought some much needed medicine and braces that he hoped Bob could use to get healthy again. When the medic approached, he asked, what do you need? What's wrong? Bob immediately looked at the clinic and asked, are you going to help me to get to the front of the line? The medic was confused. And he said, no, they can't help you. And Bob was heartbroken once more. Why would this man ask what he needed? Obviously, he needed to get in the clinic. So the story of the lame man at the Pool of Bethesda prompts us to think about the internal struggle. This is why the question is so profound. The original question is, do you want to get well? Well, of course I want to get well. I need to get in the clinic. So he was focused on what he thought he needed to do in order to get where he needed to go. And Jesus had a different idea. He had a different path that he wanted to bring this man into full healing through. The invalid in the story, he didn't say yes. This is what's wrong with me. He said, that's what I need. And that was a little convoluted. So when we think about what do I need or what do I want, the choice is, what do I really want instead of what am I willing to settle for? Or what am I focused on? Those are the negative aspects. What am I willing to settle for? We don't want to think that. Maybe put your goal in positive terms. Like, what are your best hopes for this situation that you're in? And it's okay to be unrealistic. Be outlandish with your answer. And it helps you to think bigger. It helps you to imagine possibilities that maybe think outside the box. For an example of seeing the bigger picture and not really knowing what we needed, when I was raising my first two boys, I was very focused on the outer desire for perfection and a happy family so that we'd be accepted. I wanted to be able to go places and have people want us around. I wasn't so shallow that I wanted people to think we were happy and have my family pretend. But then when they were teens, we adopted 3 kids from this area, and I became even more controlling and unreasonable. The underlying anxiety and fear crept in because I had been hurt as a child, and I didn't want them to get hurt. I didn't know how to change. I wanted my kids to be happy. I wanted to have fun. But I created an unbearable living situation, and I became a monster who ended up being rejected and alone. I came to understand that what I wanted was a perfect family so others wouldn't hurt my kids like I had been hurt. But in the process, I ended up finding out they'd been hurt anyways, by others and by myself. So instead of focusing on the problem of perfection, right? I didn't know to ask different questions. I didn't know how to go deeper. And that's what I want to help you guys do today. I want to help us to understand that sometimes the struggle we have with other people isn't necessarily the real problem. It's not the real desire we have of, right? What's the bigger goal? Is to be happy and to enjoy life. And so thinking outside of that, well, maybe if I had somebody who could share in the work, then we could be happy. Does that make sense? So now, thinking through your life, what is something that you really desire? What is something that if it happened by the end of next week, you'd be like, yes, okay? Think about it, get it in your head. Remember that unrealistic is okay because it helps us to get to the root desire that we want. And now, how would you know you got it? What would be different? And this is something that another friend, Corinne, she's not on here, but she helped me just this past week. Has anybody done a vision board? Because sometimes we just need a picture of what it is, and we need to be able to envision it with our eyes. So some people, they want an improved kitchen, so they put a bunch of kitchen pictures up. Other people might want a family and kids, and so they'll put a couple of kids. And it's the little things that add up, don't they? They add up to this big dream. So let's start with the big dream. Let's start with what would be different in our lives in a year from now if we got what we wanted. Using your 5 senses, right? If you woke up in 5 years, in 1 year, next week, and it happened, what would you see around you? What would be different? What would you hear that would be different than what you have right now? What would you smell or taste? Maybe it's a dream that you live in another country. And so you'd be tasting the foods from that region. Maybe it's a better relationship at work. And so you wouldn't be hearing bickering, you'd be hearing happy greetings, right? So there's ways to envision it. And sometimes we get so focused on a specific outcome that we miss the real transformation that could be right in front of us, that we can make right now a little shift. So I have 2 questions that we will talk about in a little bit that could deepen this. So the first one is, what is the real source of my hope or healing? Because we could look beyond our immediate circumstances or systems that we believe can bring us fulfillment and think about whether we're placing our hope in a closed medical clinic like that lame man, or a perfect family so that I don't get rejected, so that my kids don't get hurt. but maybe there's something deeper that's a more personal source for healing in yourselves as well that we might be overlooking. So what's the real source of my hope and healing? Who's going to help me get that? And then the second one is, if I let go of my current expectations, what new possibilities might I see? This prompt, this second one, challenges us to release our attachment to specific outcomes and open the door to the unexpected opportunities. Nobody thought that the hope of the world would come in a little manger, right? Nobody thought that the king of the world would be humble and gentle and kind and a healer. So how can we let go of our expectations and allow for new opportunities to show up in our lives? Shifting our perspective from what we think we need to what we really desire. And that will allow for a broader vision of what's possible.